This is the Megan Show.
What's up, Mallards? It's your boy, Skinny Megan. Coming to you live with a Soylent and a lie, because I'm not actually live. This is a pre-recorded video. But right now I am live and just talked to someone who was not alive for an hour. So I'm on the vlog to talk to you about Fragile Recall, which is a show that I just did. It was a phone call show by the same people who did Midnight Market, which Mallory went to last week. And
this is the first phone call you've done?
Yes, and this is the first phone call show I've done. This one describes itself as an interactive LARP. Like it doesn't describe itself necessarily as a show or as theater. And I would say that that's true, in that I don't feel like the show had a direction, and the write-ups for each individual concept sound like they could be a show, but the character that you're talking on the phone with doesn't necessarily have a set purpose or intention. So they're not trying to guide you towards the beginning, middle, and end of a show. They're not trying to do anything but create an experience in the truest form of like the word experience. Mm-hmm. This show, which I'll stop putting in air quotes and just say show because it's easier for me, but this experience, this live action role play, was an hour. It is $50, but there is a way on their website to get a discount if you are in need or just don't have $50 to spend on this sort of thing, which is what I did. And they recommend that you tell your friends, especially the ones who like discounts, to do the discount tab on their website, where you fill out a Google form and tell them how much you're willing to pay for the experience / like how much you can afford to pay. Or you can do some social media-y things, like make a video and talk about the show and get a percentage off automatically. So if that's something that's interesting to you, I'm sure Mallory will love me saying that she'll put links below.
Mm-hmm. I will.
But the show was about you calling a psychic who is going to connect you to your past life. And it's a little vague in that it's like, it might be your past life, or maybe it'll just be the life of someone, ? And I don't know if it's always the same person that you talk to. Like there is...
Clearly I'll have to try it and we'll have to compare notes.
Yeah, well there are 2 female and 1 male, like, performer, and so I don't know if... Like, it would be weird, I guess, if the male performer was also this person. Although the psychic said, if you end up talking to a guy, I'm still a woman, so it's still going to sound like me. But you will be talking to them, was sort of like the spiel from the psychic in the first place. So I don't know. I'd be interested to know if you've been to this show. Let me know who you spoke to. But I was speaking to a real historical person named Mabel Normand, who's a silent movie era person who a lot of her films were pulled because of various scandals that she was involved in. So she was a real historical person and like didn't necessarily encourage me to Google her, but like had a question about someone in her life and if we ever caught their killer. So I did use the internet and do some like Googling and researching of her life and then talking about her life. So it felt more like talking to a historical reenactor than like doing a LARP, especially since this was set in real 1920s life for her. So it was a lot of talking about 1920s Hollywood and if it's different now and what it's like for women and that sort of thing. And I could have aggressively steered the conversation in a different direction if I had wanted to. And I did a couple of times specifically to talk about death and like what it's like after death, and if she's talked to other people. And I also asked the psychic before, like she asked if I was ready to talk to someone, and I was like, I actually have a question, and asked about like the logistics of, well, am I going to be talking to my last past life, and do you just immediately get born into a new body once you die, or is there like an in-between period? And so it seemed like the person I was going to talk to was fairly predetermined, but again, I don't know if it's always the same person. The show write-up, from my memory, made it sound like you were going to be talking to your past life, but is she really your past life, or is she just calling you to find out more information about a murder that happened? And so I thought it was going to be a little more focused on that, and I don't know if I didn't give the right answer, if I messed it up, but it felt more like just talking to a historical reenactor about the 20s, and it was interesting.
Megan, hates the 20s so much. Not a fan. Also hates Hollywood. Not a fan. So clearly very difficult for you.
Yeah, it was, I think that it would be interesting as a person who doesn't know anything about silent movies. It was obviously interesting to me as well, but I think it was a little unfair to the performer because I have a degree in film, so I just I didn't know about this one particular starlet, but she would casually bring up Charlie Chaplin, and I think that people are usually like, oh, are you talking about Charlie Chaplin? And I was like, I don't want to hear about Charlie Chaplin. I've done an entire semester course on the guy. I'm good. So I just wasn't digging into the famous Hollywood aspect because I didn't care, and I was more wanting to know about her time in a sanitarium, but
Oh, interesting.
But she didn't have a lot of information for me there. So I felt like I broke it a little bit, but I think that that's the fun of something like this, is that it's a LARP, so you can take it the direction you want to, and breaking the game isn't breaking the game, it's giving someone a challenge, and it is a game, not a show. So I didn't feel like I was derailing the story because there wasn't necessarily a story I was supposed to hear, which can be, I think, really nice if you are anxious about interactive theater, because this isn't something that you're going to potentially mess up by interacting. You're only going to help the show happen by interacting, because it's not a show, it's a conversation. So if you have anxiety about interactive theater or about phone calls, I think this can be a really sort of low stress way to have a chat with someone, do some historical banter, try to explain computers without wanting to do the computer explanation thing. I think we were also at a disadvantage, me and this actress in particular, because I often play a 1920s woman. I often play someone who died in 1922, so I just didn't care that much about her 1922
world.
But if you like the 20s, highly recommend, because it was a lovely source of information. And if you like sort of that early age of Hollywood, I also wonder if it was picked specifically for the person or not, because she was a female producer and director who stars in silent movies, and that's very close to what I do. I tried to explain audio dramas and she couldn't picture it, so so that was Fragile Recall. Overall, a good time. This company has a lot of interesting experiences, and I highly recommend doing an experience, especially because of their policy when it comes to discounts. I think that it's worth doing, and if you especially sort of want a more open-ended historical time, this can be fun. The only thing that I would warn, I guess, is that if you are sensitive to the fake, vaguely gypsy Romanian accent thing that some people do when they're trying to be a fortune teller, it is present in this show. So, but only for the beginning, because then it's only to contrast their normal voice so that they can use their normal voice for most of the show, as the person. But if you're sort of sensitive to that sort of thing, which I kind of am, know that it's going to happen. Be prepared. But it's interesting when your voice is the only part of the show to see what a performer does. And overall, it was a good time. So recommend. Links below. This has been my review. And Mallory, we'll see you tomorrow.